Uh, we have talked about using the law of sines to solve some oblique triangles, and we know if we have sine an angle, and the side this side is not between two angles, and if we know angle, side, angle, and we have side, angle. Okay, for these three cases, this angle is not between two sides, the last one. So for these three cases, we can use law of sines. So we still have two left, which is side, angle, sine. So the angle is between two sides. And side, side. We only know three sides. So we want to solve the oblique triangle. We cannot use the law of sines because we have no pairs of the opposite side and angle. So we will use the law which is called the law of cosines. We will talk in this part to solve the triangle. Okay, so now let's look at each case. So here is we still didn't know this is the triangle we have. This is the angle A, angle B, and angle C. And here is B, side C, and side A. Okay. So law of cosines, and we actually have two versions of law of cosines. Two versions. Okay, so now let's look at the first version. If we know two sides, say, for example, side B and C. Okay. If we know these two sides, I use the red color to label it on the triangle. If we know this side and this side, and we also know the angle between these two sides. Here we say angle A. Right? So this angle we know. This is the angle we know. Then the law of cosine says, okay, if we know side B and side C and the angle between B and C, which is angle A, then we can calculate the opposite side of the angle A, which is the side A. So the side A squared should be equal to B squared plus C squared minus 2B times C times cosine A. Okay. So here the one comment is if A is a 90 degree, then which is a right triangle, right? So this tells you that A squared equals B squared plus C squared because cosine 90 degree equals 0. So it becomes the Pythagorean theorem, right? So if we know two sides and the angle between it, we can always using this formula to calculate, right? So here is this B side B and side C are known, and this angle A is between it, right? So we may not just know B and C. Here is just one example. You can know side C and side A and know the angle B, or you can know the side B and the side A and the angle C, right? So here is just one example. And another version is if we know 3 sides. Okay, 3 sides. Then we can use this formula. We can calculate the angle. Okay, using this formula, if we want to calculate the angle A, then the cosine A could be equal to B squared plus C squared minus the opposite side square over 2BC, right? If we want to calculate cosine, for example, if we want to calculate cosine B, then it would be the A squared plus C squared minus the opposite side square B squared over A times C, right? If you want to calculate cosine C, then it equals A squared plus B squared minus C squared over 2A times B, right? So here is just one example. So this A and this A are the pair of the opposite side and angle. It could be any letter, right? So here is the remark. Actually, these two formulas are equivalent. The reason is, you can see this one and this one. If you solve the first one, for cosine A, you subtract, then you actually will get this one directly. So these two formulas are equivalent. Right? These two formulas are equivalent. Two formulas. Two formulas are equivalent. So now let's look at the examples. So actually the first version is for the case, using this color, for the case SAS case, right? And the second version is for the case SSS. Okay, so now let's look at this example. We have a triangle. We have a triangle C. This is A, angle B, and C, right? If we know angle C is 87 degrees, and side B is 12 units, side A is 9 units. So you can see we know two sides and the angle between these two sides, and we want to know what is the C, right? So actually you can solve it. We can use some table, like little chart, right? A, B, and C, and angle A, angle B, and angle C. Angle C we know, which is 87 degrees. Side B is 12, side A is 9. So you can see from this little chart, we have no pair of opposite side and angle, right? So we cannot use law of sine, but we can use the law of cosine, right? So we can calculate this side C using law of cosine, which says, okay, C squared should be equal to A squared plus B squared minus 2 times A times B times cosine the angle between these two sides, which is C, right? So if you do the calculation, So c squared, if you plug inside, this is c squared equals 9 squared plus 12 squared minus 2 times 9 times 12 times cosine 87 degree, right? Use your calculator. C is equal to, if you use a calculator, you take the square root, you must take the positive square root. The reason is C is the length of one side, so it's always positive, right? So it would be 14.6. Okay, so this is the 14.6. So now another question is, so this is for the side C. So if we want to find the angle A, what we should do, right? What we should do. So here, some students may say, okay, since we have a pair of the opposite side and the angle, which is the side C and the angle C, then we can use the law of sine to calculate A. That is correct. However, last time we say that when we talk about the law of sine an angle sine A, you can calculate sine A. If sine A is positive, right? Sine A is positive, then we have two angles, right? To make the sine value to be positive between 0 and pi. So if you just take the sine inverse, that is not enough, right? The sine inverse will give you angle between negative pi over 2 to pi over 2. So in other words, the sine inverse, if sine A is positive, sine inverse is only give you this angle, right? This angle, not this angle. We still need to look at this. So we have two cases, right? We need to pi minus the sine inverse to get this angle, right? But the problem is you have two choices, two cases. So you need to discuss the different cases, right? It may have some trouble, right? Some triangle does not exist. Then we only have the other one, right? So it will cost your time to have the discussion. However, if we use the law of cosine, because we know three sides, right? Now we know these three sides. So we can calculate, for example, cosine A. Cosine A is equal to what? Equal to b squared plus c squared minus a squared over 2bc, right? Then we can say A must be cosine inverse of this number. Cosine inverse of this number, okay? The reason is, if you use the cosine inverse, we don't need to discuss the different cases, because the cosine inverse is always between 0 and pi, right? 0 and pi. So if it's positive, so you must have acute angle. If it's negative, you must have obtuse angle, right? So this tells us if you can use two laws, law of sine and the law of cosine, we always prefer using law of cosine. The reason is here. If you take the cosine inverse, arc cosine, you don't need to discuss the different cases. Okay, it will save you a lot of time, right? If you want to find cosine B, right? Cosine B would be the a squared plus c squared minus b squared over 2AC, right? So B is, you just see, okay, B is equal to cosine inverse A squared plus C squared minus B squared over 2AC. Okay, so this B must be the angle you are looking for, right? Because our angle is the angle in the triangle, so it's between 0 and pi. So the cosine inverse is also between 0 and pi, so we have no any ambiguous case, right? Okay. So I will not do the calculation because you can just use your calculator to do this quickly, right? Then you can get A and the angle B. So actually, if you know the angle A, then you take the 180 degree minus angle A minus angle C, which will give you angle B, right? So keep in mind, if you can use two laws, law of cosine, law of sine, we prefer to use law of cosine because we don't need to discuss any ambiguous case. Okay, so now let's look at this example. Another example, if you have a triangle and this angle A, B, and C, and the side C equals 17, side B equals 15, and A is equal to 10. So we want to find the angle B. Okay, so the angle B is what? So we can use, this is the SSS case, right? This is the case SSS. We know three sides. So we know three sides and we can calculate this angle B directly because angle B cosine B is equal to A squared plus C squared. This is two sides beside, this is the two sides and the angle B is between these two sides, right? This is two sides next to this angle B and minus the opposite side of angle B, which is B squared over 2AC. So if you do the calculation, it would be 64 over 340. Okay, of course you can simplify it, but then we can calculate cosine would be cosine inverse, B would be cosine inverse 1. Then it will give you an angle which is 61.2 degree. Okay. Then our B, we only have just only one angle, right? So now let's look at area. We still look at the area of a triangle. So last time, in the law of sine, we have talked about, recall, when we talk about the law of sine, then we, if we know this is the angle C, and this is side B and side A, if we know the two sides and the angle between it, we can say, okay, the area of this triangle is equal to 1/2 A times B times sine C, right? Okay, so this is the one thing. If we know, so now in this part, we want to talk about another situation. If we know three sides, A, B, and C. Of course, then you can use the law of cosine to calculate the one angle, then use the two sides between next to this angle, and using these three informations, we can use this formula to get the area directly, right? However, here is another thing. We know three sides, then we can use the following formula to get the area, which is called the Heron's formula, area formula, which says, okay, if we let S be the half of the circumference of this parameters of this triangle, which is A plus B plus C divided by 2, then the area is equal to the square root, the half circumference times S minus A times S minus B times S minus C, side C. Okay, so this is called the Heron's formula. This is the area. I should not use A. Area. Okay, let's look at this example. If A side A is equal to 34, side B equals 53, and side C equals 72, right? What is the area for this triangle? So actually we can calculate S be the half of the perimeter, okay, which is equal to 84, right? Then our area is equal to 84 times 84 minus 43 times 84 minus 53 times 84 minus 72. Right? So if you do the calculation, it would be 1131.89 square units.